You're listening to another episode of the Ranger Gareth podcast where we discuss nature news, oh god, and I almost knocked that off, and interview the finest minds in the ecosphere. I'm Gareth, former park ranger and permanent conservationist. Today my guests are Ethan and Abuma. Today we're going to learn about a whole bunch of local news. We have sheep cloning, we have invasive goldfish. We actually have a follow-up for one of the stories we talked about last time with the U.S. takeover of Canadian parks. I forgot to mention that. I would like to emphasize that this podcast is separate from my current job. It is, however, my passion to spread awareness about environmental news and events to the general public. Still no sponsors. Guys, come on. Life ain't free. You can follow me on Patreon. You can follow me on rangergarrett.com. But now we will dive right into the news. So hello, Ethan and Abuma.
Hey, guys.
We have a lot to talk about this week. This month for the October update. How have you guys been?
Pretty good. It's been decent weather so far for October.
Yeah, it hasn't snowed at all.
We've lucked out so far. I thought it was supposed to snow last Monday, but yeah, I don't know if we dodged the bullet there.
Yeah, we came together as a community to avoid it somehow, right?
As I tell people, though, whenever I hear about like a new tropical parasite or something that eats brains or whatever, I'm always like, okay, you know what? I'll handle the Canadian winter to avoid that. Like, no brain worms, but like 5 months of snow, okay.
Yeah.
I can live with that. First one I wanted to jump into is a country that a lot of us don't really think about. When's the last time either of you have even thought about Cyprus outside of this episode?
Listening to Cypress Hill on Spotify probably. That's the last time.
It's been a while.
Like, I thought about it briefly when I was visiting Greece, but I didn't realize that they are now a world leader in solar heating. So the country has more than 300 days of sunshine in a year, and there are these solar heaters which involve boilers, solar panels, and water to heat and cool the buildings. When I was in Greece, I did see a lot of these solar water heaters on the rooftops there as well. Greek climate, very similar to the Cypriot climate. 93.5% of the households in Cyprus are using these hot water solar systems, and almost 100% of the hotels. The first solar water heating system was installed in Cyprus almost 60 years ago. In fact, these solar water heaters hit a lot of the houses before the electrical network came online. Electricity only got to the island in 1903, and a lot of these houses, they had the hot water tanks installed on the roof before electricity even got to the rest of the island. These units are extremely cost effective, and they've been great for low-income families. One issue which I wanted to touch on is the fact that since the Cypriot electrical network runs on fuel oil and diesel, which is very dirty, Cyprus has to pay for emission quotas from other European Union member states to meet their legal objectives. This obligation costs Cypriots up to 1/3 of their monthly electricity bills. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen those pictures whenever somebody will post something from like ATCO or some other gas supplier where they'll use no gas in a month but still have to pay an $80 bill because of like distribution fee and delivery fee and administrative surcharge and stuff. And I hate that stuff. I hate when you get a tax on a tax. I hate when you get taxed on something you don't use.
Yeah, I'd be on the phone ASAP calling these guys saying, why are you charging me money for not using anything?
It's a scam.
Trying to dispute it.
It's a scam. I wouldn't even want natural gas run to my home if that's what can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But imagine you look at your bill and just 1/3 of it is paying all your neighboring countries for your electricity. Like I'm a bit torn on this one because I get wanting to reduce emissions. Fuel oil, as you guys might know, it's incredibly dirty. A lot of the cruise ships use fuel oil. It's some of the nastiest shit you can find. Wasn't it bunker, like that fuel bunker oil that got into Wabamun during the big train crash? Wasn't that one of the things that got into the water?
There was definitely something, I just can't remember offhand what it was.
Yeah.
But
I believe it was bunker oil, and then there was like some other, the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or whatever.
That sounds right.
But, 1/3 of your monthly bill being like, hey, pay the rest of the EU so you can keep using electricity, that doesn't really sit right with me.
Me too.
One that I really wanted to jump into, though, I'm sure this is one we're all excited for. This headline, guys. Montana man sentenced for federal wildlife trafficking charges as part of years-long effort to create giant hybrid sheep for captive hunting. For anyone that's not familiar with the concept of captive hunting, you take a bunch of exotic animals or big local animals, you set up really high fences around a giant game ranch, and then some rich people show up and they shoot a giant captive animal and say, look what I hunted. I don't really view that as proper hunting. It seems more just like shitty farming. What happened is the defendant worked to traffic something called a Marco Polo sheep. He was trafficking these parts from Kyrgyzstan, and he wanted to clone these sheep, illegally inseminate ewes, ewes is a term for female sheep, to create hybrids, and then traffic Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep parts. So this man was sentenced to 6 months in prison for committing 2 felony wildlife crimes. For our American friends, I had never heard of this before, but these were violations of the Lacey Act. He was part of a nearly decade-long effort to create giant sheep hybrids in the United States with the aim to sell the species to captive hunting facilities. Now, for anyone wondering why you would do something so dumb and so risky, we looked it up at our other job the other day, and you can charge over $100,000 US per sheep hunting trip. So if you get this operation up and running, you could literally be making millions just off sheep hunting.
Yeah, just put that all in video, right?
Man, that's stock. That's stock, guys. That's my ticket out of here early. Arthur Jack Shoebarth is the owner and operator of Shoebarth Ranch, a 215-acre alternative livestock ranch in Montana. So alternative livestock includes things like mountain sheep, mountain goats, and various ungulates. So ungulates being like deer, elk, moose. The primary market for these livestock are the captive hunting operations, also known as game ranches. Shoebarth conspired with at least 5 other people between 2013 and 2021 to create a larger hybrid species of sheep, which would garner higher prices. The Marco Polo sheep from Kyrgyzstan is one of the largest sheep in the world, weighing more than 300 pounds. This one was a little strange to me because I'm pretty sure our Rocky Mountain bighorn also get to about 300, so I don't know what made these sheep special. Maybe just the rarity. But they are protected internationally by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, otherwise known as CITES. Shoebarth sent that genetic material to a lab to create a genetically pure clone nicknamed the Montana Mountain King, or MMK. The plan was to use the semen from the pure MMK sheep to create larger hybrid sheep for captive hunting facilities, primarily in Texas. It's always Texas or Florida nowadays. all the best stories are coming out of Texas and Florida. Maybe not best, worst stories.
So it made me laugh, right? Like, I'm like, Florida man is innocent for once.
Yeah.
It's Montana man today, right?
Well, like Tiger King was Texas too, right?
Those guys are always up to some BS, man.
They're nuts. They're rich.
Crazy.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
They love their animals.
I'm just impressed he tried to clone it. Like, I'm old enough to remember Dolly the sheep and being blown away that a whole team of scientists can do it. And then this rancher from Montana is like, you know what? That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm just going to clone this giant sheep.
Yeah, it's no longer just like, Chinese gene scientists who are making these, or like British geniuses. It's now just, some guy who's like, hey, I want some big sheep.
Yeah.
Give me that sheep leg. I'm going to make something special right now. In addition to the prison sentence, Shoebarth was ordered to pay a $20,000 fine for the Lacey Act Reward Fund, $4,000 to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and a $200 special assessment. Now, a couple of the big issues with this sheep, I didn't add it in the show notes today, but if you guys read the headlines as well, one of the risks was the fact that when you're bringing in sheep from other countries, there's the risk that they could bring on other diseases as well.
Yeah.
And with these game ranches, they're not always perfectly secure, so if an infected sheep gets out, or an infected sheep from inside the facility meets a pure sheep from outside the facility, even just at the fence, there's a risk of a disease hopping. Some people think that, and again, we might be getting a little bit into the conspiracy waters, but we're not a scientific show. Some people believe that game ranches are where that chronic wasting disease came from, which I'm sure you guys have heard of. It's like that neurodegenerative disease in a lot of the deer right now. You're looking a little confused. So chronic wasting disease, what happened is, I'm going to butcher the science, please don't hate me. there are these things called prions or prions, which are these folded proteins in the brain, and they can multiply in the brain and cause degeneration of the brain tissue. It can spread via saliva or any other like bodily fluid, basically. So the brain starts breaking down, comes out of your mouth. It sounds so gross. But then these prions can last in the environment for a long time. So if an infected deer spits on the ground, just hawk tools all over a rock, hawk tools all over a rock or something, that rock can infect other deer for like months afterwards.
Oh.
So like we thought COVID was scary because it can stay for like, I don't know, a week on a surface. Yeah. Picture the Black Plague just came back because some rat shit on a rock 3 years ago.
3 years.
It's just
it
is so like and for chronic wasting disease, it mainly affects our mule deer and our whitetail deer, and they found like a small number of cases in elk and moose. But whenever you have these game ranches or open net fish pens and stuff like that, there's always the risk of new diseases emerging. I think I've heard of a couple issues with farmed fish as well, but we can say that for a different show because I have not done my research for farmed fish at all. So you guys want to go spend $100,000 US to shoot a giant sheep?
If you're paying for it.
That's why we need sponsors.
That's
why we need sponsors.
We need to go undercover to these game ranches. Somebody give us $300,000 US for science, for journalism.
It is for science.
It is for science.
Yeah.
I completely agree, yeah.
And yeah, the fact that cloning is now just that easy.
Yeah.
That's kind of nuts
amazing.
To me. One that you sent me, Ethan. Do you want to talk about this one? The British guy swimming down the Yukon River?
Yeah, so Ross Edgley, a UK man, he's basically an endurance marathon swimmer. I came across this. I followed him on Instagram, and he does a lot of crazy stuff, but this one might have been the craziest. So yeah, he swam 510 kilometers nonstop down the Yukon River with a team of support people.
My God.
He spent 2.5 days in the water. He's also the first guy to swim all the way around the UK, I think, as well. He's
if any British people are listening, don't get mad. Specifically, it was the island of Great Britain.
Oh, the island of Great Britain. Okay.
Because then there's someone going to be like, "Oh, he didn't swim around Northern Ireland." And but yeah, no. don't hate me. I've got British ancestors. Okay, don't hate me. But you guys do talk kind of funny. Yeah. He circumnavigated the whole, like all of Great Britain, which is insane. So sorry, continue.
No, it's. So he did have a full support team with him in the boats, and apparently it was so daunting he was hallucinating on day 2.
Oh my God.
I don't know if I could swim 500 meters, let alone 510 kilometers.
But you guys didn't know the secret. I can't even swim. So this is so impressive to me. This is more than impressive to me, and so crazy. So no life jacket?
I don't think so. Like I looked at some of the pictures after, and just like, you know, if you sit in the bath for 20 minutes and you get the pruny hands, his hands were like swollen and didn't even look like.
It sounds like he just had a wetsuit.
Yeah, I'm sure they put some sort of like protective jelly on you too to keep you warm.
Not that protective.
Yeah.
I've swum in Arctic waters before, and like have you ever like taken a dip in one of those mountain lakes? Have you ever like taken a dip in a mountain lake?
Horseshoe Lake in the summer, and it is cold.
Yep.
Even in August.
Even in the summer.
So I don't care how hard you're swimming. 2.5 days in it, even 2.5 days in warm water, I feel like that would mess me up.
Oh yeah. I think your skin just starts to like slough off.
Yeah.
Eventually. Right? Like, it would just be uncomfortable.
Oh my God. So yeah, he I can't even comprehend 510 kilometers. Like, I know the current is taking you part of the way, but still, and you would have to be awake and like active the whole time because you don't want to go under the water. You don't want to hit a submerged rock. If you see some I wonder what he did about the rapids. like
float down. Like hopefully, I don't know. I haven't been on that river, so
strong swimmer.
Yeah,
has to be.
Well, and it's so easy to go under, right? Like I don't know if you know that CrossFit Games back a couple months back, right, where they
someone died.
Unfortunately, passed away, right? And the divers or the support people were like right there beside him.
Really?
So I can't imagine being on a river where the water's moving fast, and you're in a dark wetsuit, right? That'd be scary.
Moving on, we've got Alberta reinstating the grizzly bear hunt. This one is going to be a little spicy. I know that some of the listeners are going to be very against it. I don't know how I feel about this yet.
Is it $100,000?
No. They have very specific rules for how you will be allowed to hunt it. So, in June, the government of Alberta altered the province's wildlife regulation, which is part of the Wildlife Act, to allow limited hunting of grizzlies in Alberta. Grizzly bears are listed as a threatened species in Alberta, and an Alberta Grizzly Bear Recovery Plan was first completed and accepted in 2008, with the latest review and revisions in 2020. The Alberta government will permit selective grizzly bear hunts if they meet certain criteria. Forestry and Parks Minister Todd Loewen stated that this is an overall management strategy for problem wildlife in particular, to make sure that we can respond to rural Albertans, both their concerns of safety but also loss of crop and loss of livestock. The provincial government said there has been a rise in reports of problematic and dangerous grizzly human and grizzly animal interactions. The authorization to hunt can be issued if a grizzly has been involved in a human-bear conflict situation or if the bear is located in an area of concern. The bear must not be accompanied by a cub. Sport hunting of grizzlies ended in 2006, and grizzlies were listed as a threatened species in 2010, when the provincial population estimate was between 700 and 800 bears. Today, the province estimates there are over 1,100. Have you guys seen any of the recent videos of grizzlies, like, in the mountains? How about I narrow that even further? Have you seen any outside of Banff and Canmore? Because everyone's seen, like, the Boss and Split Lip, like those famous bears.
Yeah.
I've been seeing more videos of bears in, like, the Crow's Nest Pass than I had ever seen before. More up in Grand Cache. I saw one this morning from, like, a family of grizzlies just off the side of the highway on top of a moose. Just eating the carcass and stuff. But what about you guys? Have you guys seen much about grizzlies recently?
Yeah, I only hear about the Boss. Every so often, one of these accounts posts the Boss, which is good because he actually is a boss.
Yeah.
Right? What a legend.
But no, I haven't really seen any other posts about grizzlies.
Do you know if it was a grizzly, there were some hikers that got attacked
The ones in Waterton?
in Waterton?
I'm pretty sure that was a grizzly.
Yeah.
And I've been in Waterton. In fact, my wife and I had a close encounter with the bear.
Oh.
What happened was we were coming down from a hike. Oh God, what was that lake called now? You know what? I'm not going to stress because it'll be way too much dead air as I rack my brain for this thing. But we were coming back from a hike, and now this is going to sound awful, but there was a heavier set guy coming up the trail, and I thought he was just doing like the grossest sneeze, like. And my wife was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Oh, I think it's the heavy fella coming up the trail." But then we see him, and his mouth doesn't make any movement, but we still hear, and I'm like, "Oh shit, that's a bear!" There was a bear just off the trail. Like, it sounded close, like maybe 20 feet off the trail, 30 feet off the trail. But because Waterton had the wildfire a few years back, the shrubbery was super thick on the edge of the trail. So it was like 5 or 6 foot tall willows and other small trees and shrubs. You can't see anything in that kind of shrubbery. So yeah, just unhooked the bear spray and walked a little faster and made a bit more noise. But yeah, they're there, like all through that mountain range. I've seen videos. There was a pretty good video a couple years ago of this family of like 3 grizzlies that were causing issues for this rancher in the Crow's Nest area. I mean, they're out there, but what do I think about hunting them? I don't know. Under those like very specific restrictions, I could see it. making sense. Like, if you're a rancher in the mountains and there's a grizzly that's eating all your cattle, yeah that sucks. Yeah. Is insurance going to cover it? Maybe, hopefully. I don't know a ton about livestock insurance. I know that the government has the livestock compensation program, I believe it's called, but you can essentially tell the government, hey, one of the wild animals ate my cattle, I want money for it. And they'll pay you, I don't know if it's the full market price, but they'll pay you something for it.
1,100 seems like not very many, though.
To me, it doesn't seem like many.
Like, it's a pretty big province we have, and to only have 1,100-ish, right, based on estimates. And really, like, is it going to be one of those things that people that want to hunt them but can't get permitting for them say, oh, yeah, we ran into it, and it attacked my friend, or it came at us and charged, and we shot it, right? So are you opening a Pandora's box?
Yeah, I think that's a thin line, right? Like, people are gonna try to do that trophy hunt and then blame it on attacks, right? So it's very, as much as it's reasonable, it's very hard to govern, right? How can you prove that this thing did not attack livestock of this particular person, right?
Yeah.
And if it's 3 people or 4 people, they can come up with a story.
Yeah. Well, and especially like if 2010 they're saying you have about 800,
and now
and
it's
14 years later we have 300 more.
300 more, yeah.
It's taking a while for that population to increase.
Yeah, slow reproduction cycle. Like, I think grizzlies can only have, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 cubs a litter. So, and grizzlies are cannibals. So, if a male grizzly finds those cubs and mom is not around, it's going to eat them. So, it takes a long time for those numbers to come back up.
Yeah, there's some pretty gnarly videos on that, too.
It's bad, man. Shout out to Nature is Metal. Just showing all the craziest animal attacks. I know you guys know about Nature is Metal. I'm pretty sure most of the listeners have heard us talk about it by now, but, like, man, the amount of bear attacks. I saw this one. It was a grizzly digging up a black bear den.
Oh.
And it took its time. Because it was just sitting right on top of the den. It knew that black bear was not getting out. It just digs and then waits and digs and then waits and digs and then waits. And then eventually you see the black bear try and make a run for it. Doesn't make it very far. Yeah. Does not make it very far. You can't outrun the grizzly. God, they're scary animals.
Yeah. You just got to find somebody slower than you.
Yeah.
You just got to outrun them.
You want to go for a hike? Yeah. Moving on, we've got... Now, this one isn't quite as exciting, but it's actually way more applicable to a large chunk of the province. Alberta's Auditor General found that our system for managing surface water is ineffective. A highly critical report from the auditor released recently found Alberta has implemented water conservation objectives in 2 of its 7 major river basins. The government does not know if existing water conservation objectives are working. The report says processes to monitor water use, assess risks, and decide when conservation is needed are weak, and monitoring to ensure water users are being efficient and staying within requirements of their licenses aren't up to the job. The auditor's report says the lack of conservation objectives covers both water quality and quantity concerns. This includes impacts on aquatic life that various industrial, commercial, and recreational activities would have. There are no triggers that let managers know when water is running short. That scares the crap out of me. Mm-hmm. Little monitoring and enforcement is done to ensure current users are following their licenses. In many cases, the water licenses were renewed even when there was evidence that rules weren't being followed. In addition, the last time overall supply and demand levels for water was studied was about 16 years ago. This comes as Alberta continues to experience water worries, including reduced stream flows, retreating glaciers, and lower lake levels. Okay, so last time supply and demand was checked out was 16 years ago. Let's see Alberta population by year. And let's see what it was 16 years ago. Let's see if we can find that. So, let's see, about 16 years ago. 2006 is about 16 years ago.
That is scary to think about.
So 2006, we had 1 million less people.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the last time they checked. Jeez.
Wow.
1 million less people.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys have been to Southern Alberta, but you've been to Southern Alberta before?
Oh, yeah.
Have you driven down there? Like, ever? It's dry. It's arid. Like, it's...
Really?
It's good ranch land.
Okay.
And I know there are people that farm down there, but, like, it is subject to droughts quite a bit, just because of the geography of the area. You know, you have the mountains blocking all the coastal rain, and it's going to be so much drier than northern Alberta generally. We have this system. The way our water licenses are given out is, I forget what their term for it is, but it's like, essentially it was like a first come first serve water license. So the people that bought their water licenses, 50 years ago, they get to use up, like, their quota is guaranteed. And then everyone else after that, it's like kind of going down the pecking order. So if I bought a water license tomorrow, there would be like thousands of other users that would have their water guaranteed before mine is guaranteed. So if you have like a historical ranching operation at the edge of the mountains, you get yours first. If you're running a pulp mill, you get yours first. But yeah, any of the newer license users, they're not doing great. And this also ties into one of my greater concerns, which is water rights. You guys probably heard of all the proposed coal mines down in the Crow's Nest Pass.
Yeah.
And that became very controversial for a while because people had, justified concerns about water quality and things getting released into the water. Now, I've been to the Crow's Nest Pass. Love a lot of the people down there. It is a mining community. So for them, they view the lack of mines as an actual existential threat. They're like, oh, tourism isn't going to give us the kind of money and job security that the mines would. But at the same time, if you have chemicals from the mine leaching into those headwaters, that water goes all the way through Alberta, all the way through Saskatchewan, through Manitoba, into the ocean. So if you release a bunch of toxic chemicals there, you're screwing up 3 provinces along the way. It's so risky. I don't want to see the Crow's Nest collapse. And I'm not like anti-mining, but I am pro-clean water because it doesn't matter how much money you're making if you can't drink your water or breathe your air. It's one of those things where I don't even view that as a trade-off. It's like, no, we want healthy water
drink water and breathe air, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to making money.
Yeah. I'm sure it's the same for most of the world. Like, we don't want to poison ourselves, we don't want to poison our kids to make a quick buck, but at the same time, if you're making no money, then you're going to have to move or let your town collapse or something. So,
but you look at some of the reserves, right, across Canada that don't have access to clean water, yet we're looking at potentially risking, poisoning multiple waterways.
Oh, God.
Right? And how are they going to clean that up?
Well, exactly. Like, we could even touch on some of those reserves that are like near industrial operations. Like, I know you've probably heard of it. I don't know if you've heard of some of the issues in Fort Chipewyan, but it's one of the First Nations communities close to Fort McMurray. Okay. And since they're surrounded by all the oil sands activity, please don't sue me, Chevron or whoever's listening.
Sponsor us instead, please.
Sponsor us instead, and we'll shut up. But one of the issues was that they have way higher cancer rates than like any other First Nations community around.
That's terrible.
It's bad because, all the companies, a lot of those companies, they have brilliant lawyers and they know how to talk. They know how to talk and say, oh, well, actually, if you look at factor X, Y, and Z, it's probably caused by, too many pine needles in the water. They'll find some way to they'll find some way to deflect it, but at the end of the day, it's necessary for human life. I don't want to get too controversial, but it's just...
Yeah. Well, even like the big lakes around Edmonton, right? Pigeon's low, Waldman's low, Sylvan's low, historically low.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be getting worse every year. I mean, we're going to have to build more dock sections pretty soon.
Yeah.
Just to keep it up.
Yeah, my friend at Pigeon Lake, he was saying that, they had to extend their dock quite a bit. I went fishing with one of my buddies at a lake up by Athabasca as well, and the boat launch, the ramp was almost out of the water. You don't want to take your trailer all the way down now. Luckily we just had a small little tin boat so we could carry it, but you're not getting a big boat into that lake anymore. And I know before people start saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, I know that some lakes do have natural water cycles that just regenerate with the groundwater every few years or so. But to have every lake sink up, to have low water years the last 2 or 3 years,
Pretty scary.
that doesn't feel right to me.
Nope.
Now, for one of the big stories, a big story that shouldn't be a big story because we've all been told about this since we were kids. Quit putting your goldfish down the toilet or in the local ponds.
Yeah.
Edmonton West End residents fear goldfish cull will harm environment. A community group at Edmonton's West End says EPCOR hasn't been transparent enough about the potential harms of a chemical treatment meant to kill invasive goldfish in local ponds to keep them out of the North Saskatchewan River. EPCOR, which stands for Edmonton Power Corporation, plans to use a fish toxicant containing the chemical rotenone to rid several ponds in Edmonton of goldfish, including 2 in the Glastonbury neighborhood west of Anthony Henday Drive. For anyone that's not familiar with rotenone, it's a plant root derived chemical which kills pretty much all aquatic species. I think it's every gilled aquatic animal. I don't know the exact mechanism, but it's used by a lot of groups, including national parks, provincial groups. Some residents have launched a campaign to protect our Guinevere wetlands. They fear the chemicals may not be safe for the environment and people who live nearby. Residents also fear for the health of birds such as pelicans that use these wetlands. The main concerns from residents seem to be the lack of communication from EPCOR. The World Health Organization classifies rotenone as moderately hazardous. It's approved for use by Health Canada and Alberta environment officials to kill invasive fish. Recently, Parks Canada used it to kill invasive trout in national parks in the Rockies, particularly brook trout. For anyone that is like newer to fishing, yeah, brook trout, they come from eastern Canada. They're not really meant to be in our mountain lakes. Mm-hmm. Same with brown trout. They're from Europe. They make great fishing, but they're not technically supposed to be here. Some research has found links to Parkinson's disease as a developmental neurotoxin. Eliminating every fish and amphibian in a water body will eliminate a food source for birds and other animals, meaning they will need to relocate. EPCOR is legally required to manage invasive species in their waterways and need to prevent the goldfish from entering the North Saskatchewan River. About 18,000 goldfish were collected from 3 different ponds in recent years. Jeez, they produce fast.
18,000. That's a lot of pets.
They're extremely hardy and can overwinter in some ponds. Once goldfish get into the North Saskatchewan River, it will be impossible to treat. Now, when I was looking up this story, I saw something about the toxicity of the rotenone. Let's see if I can find the section where it says, here we go. So, an adult human would need to drink about half the water of a typically sized public swimming pool to die if the water was poisoned just enough to kill the fish inside. So basically, if you're thirsty enough to drink half a swimming pool's worth of rotenone water,
would that be over time or in one set in one go?
I don't know. I don't even know.
For a friend.
I don't even know if I'm gonna drink. What is that? 200,000 liters.
200,000 liters. Okay, that's
Okay, all right.
Has to be over a lifetime.
I was gonna say, let's say
if you love ginger ale like me.
Let's say you are hydrating well. Like what are they saying we should drink? 2 liters of water a day?
Yeah, 2 liters a day.
All right, 2 liters.
I think.
So in a year, we're drinking 730 liters. Okay. Now, 200,000 divided by 730. Okay, so in 274 years, we will drink enough of this water to die.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
I can do it in 140 years.
Cut it in half.
Goldfish have also been found this year in a stormwater pond in the town of Sylvan Lake, but not the main lake itself, which the stormwater pond drains into. And back in 2015, goldfish were found in stormwater ponds in St. Albert. The town spent 2 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to remove the fish, including draining the lake and letting it freeze solid in the winter, and electrofishing. And then, Ethan, you found that they are also trying to get rid of them in Terwilliger?
Yeah, I happened to live there, and all of a sudden the stormwater ponds, the fences went up, and you see the guys on the little boat, all decked out in the hazmat suits, and so obviously the neighbors in the area are rightfully concerned. What are they doing in the water?
Yeah.
And sure enough, they're just trying to poison the fish.
My God, guys, quit dumping your goldfish.
How long till why haven't they looked at putting crocodile babies in there
My God. Battle the invasives with some
Yeah.
more invasives.
Yeah, crocodiles should be easier to eliminate after they've eaten all the goldfish.
You know what? And I
That's a fair point.
Move them down to Florida.
Have you ever seen those like Chinese fishermen that train the birds to fish for them?
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
There
interesting.
are these birds called cormorants. They're like this really weird water bird. They're hard to describe. I'll show you a picture after. But I've seen videos where these Chinese guys that they go out fishing and the cormorants actually help them catch fish because they're fish eating birds.
That's pretty smart.
But one of the weird things about cormorants is that their feathers aren't actually waterproof. So they'll swim, they'll dive, they'll get their fish, and then you'll see them standing on the shore afterwards with their wings out to dry off in the sun. It's such an inefficient system, but I don't know. Birds are weird. I love them, but they're so weird. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then that actually reminded me. So for that St. Albert story, where they were also spending years and a ton of money to get rid of the goldfish, they also found crayfish in the stormwater pond. Now, I was telling Ethan before the episode started, Abuma, have you ever seen the map of our water drainages, like where all of our lake systems are?
Okay.
So we're down here in the North Saskatchewan River Basin. Up here by Cold Lake is the Beaver River Basin. This is the only place that crayfish are supposed to be in Alberta. But they're being spread everywhere. I don't know if it's a natural spread or if humans are spreading them. A few years back, I was doing a patrol in White Mud Creek, and I saw two guys there with like a little trap thing. And I was like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" And they said, "Oh, we're catching crayfish." And I was confused because I asked them like, "Oh, crayfish aren't supposed to be in the creek." And then they showed me that they had caught a couple crayfish already, and they're like, "Yeah, they're here." I mean, they probably make good eating, but
Phenomenal eating, man.
they're just not supposed to be here. Also, I don't know if I ever told you, but do you know that the Milk River in southern Alberta is the only river in Alberta that drains into the Gulf of Mexico?
Into the Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Milk River connects to the Missouri River, which connects to the Mississippi River, which connects to the Gulf of Mexico.
Huh.
So that is one of the reasons why they have a species down in the Milk River, which isn't found in any of the other water bodies in Alberta. A small catfish with a little poisonous barb on its neck.
Wow.
I know, it's nuts.
That's pretty cool.
That's our link to Florida, eh?
Yeah, maybe we can be the Florida man one day. I did have one. I actually had two other stories. One of them was a follow-up to a story we had been talking about a little while ago. Let's see if I can find it. Where are you? Oh God, did I lose it? Basically, remember how a little while ago we were talking about, I forget if it was you or you that was with me, the takeover for the American parks. Yeah. So, there was a recent story, let's see, Viad, Alberta, let's see. So there was an update for the court case, which I am now having trouble viewing. But for any... Oh, God, now this has fallen off the rails. I had it for a second, and I lost the headline. Oh, here we go. All right, Reuters. Reuters got us. Travel and lodging firm Viad to sell events unit for $535 million. So, let's see. It looks like they are having to divest a bunch of their businesses now. This is recent news. As the story develops, maybe we'll touch on that in the November episode. But it looks like the anti-competition suit is, it's working.
Well, that'll be interesting, especially after the Jasper fires, as they're rebuilding, because they own a good chunk of hotels in Jasper.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the ones I stay at.
That's how they get you. They get you with the bundles. That was what the other companies were arguing. They were like, it's anti-competitive because they're like, they were selling it was almost like an all-inclusive. You'd fly into the airport. They'd have the shuttle from the airport to the parks, and then you'd get to the parks, and they would have your hotel set up for you, and they'd be like, all right, you can check out these 3 tourist attractions, and then you can stay at these restaurants that we also own. You can travel around on the buses that we own, and then go fly home.
Yeah.
Which works in other countries. Like, that's how all-inclusives work in other countries as far as I know, but it seems like Canada has a much more robust anti-competition system, which I think is good.
Unless you're Roderson Shop.
Oh, God, that hurts. Now, one that will also be a little spicy for locals. So, have you guys heard of the private tree bylaw they are proposing?
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, 2 of us aren't homeowners. 1 of us is. This might affect you. So what happened is they are looking to put in a bylaw where you cannot cut down trees on your own private property.
Wow.
Yeah. That one, again, I see where they're coming from, but it just feels like a huge overstep, in my opinion. The argument is 45% of the trees in Edmonton are on private property. Okay. So in people's yards, businesses, stuff like that. The rest would be on city-owned land, like our River Valley, city parks, all of that. So essentially, almost half of our canopy is on private land. The canopy is important for a lot of things, providing different ecosystem services, shade, fruit trees, homes for animals, cleaning the air, all of that stuff. Their argument is we need to protect those trees because they are, well, first off, because that's half the trees in the city, and second off, because it provides services not just to the homeowner, but to the whole community. So they are going to be debating that one right away. Mature trees are important for our city's resiliency. They are also important for people moving to the city as well. I know a lot of people that have come to visit are really surprised at how nice some of our streets are. Especially in the older established neighborhoods that have those old elm trees. Those are amazing trees, and they're actually valued by the city's urban forestry team at tens of thousands of dollars per tree.
Oh yeah.
Would it be places like Gnar?
Yeah. Okay. Even some of those northeast neighborhoods that we sometimes make fun of occasionally, but they do have very nice tree canopies. And it looks like, according to this one group that I follow, a lot of people in Edmonton do support the private tree bylaw. I wonder how that survey went. I'm not sure if I totally buy that. I don't know. What do you guys think? I've been talking too much. What do you guys think about being told you can't cut down trees on your own property for the greater good?
Well, I don't have any trees on my property, just the boulevard tree.
Oh, okay.
But it seems like a bit of an overreach, right? If it's my tree and we have, so essentially, let's say the tree gets a disease. Now I have to go through the city to get approval to have them cut down my tree.
Exactly.
So I have to get their approval, but then am I responsible for paying for the removal of said tree, or are they going to be responsible now if they're not going to let me cut it down?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't have any trees. I mean, the city honestly has a hard enough time maintaining the boulevard trees as it is.
Yeah.
We take care of ours as best we can, and we've had multiple neighbors have their trees replaced, right? It seems like a cycle. Every 5 years, it grows, it gets some sort of illness, and then the city's chopping it down, and then the next year they come and plant a replacement tree. So, it's just seems like a bit of an overreach.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ethan. I think it's an overstep. I think if it's your property, you paid this amount of money to secure that property, right? Why should the government be able to tell you that you can't cut down a tree that nobody really wants to cut down trees. Maybe you want to build something. Some people are like that, right? But if it's invasive and if it has a disease, right, then the quicker you get rid of it, the better it is, right? So I understand what they want to do, but I think it's a little bit of an overreach.
Yeah. I think most people want to keep the trees
Yeah.
anyways, right? If I
Yeah.
can find a nice house in a mature neighborhood and it's got
A nice tree.
beautiful trees,
Exactly.
I would much rather keep it. But
Yeah.
heaven forbid something happens,
Then
right? It gets struck by lightning. Now I gotta wait for city approval to cut down my own tree
Yeah.
so I can access my house. I don't know. It seems a little off. But
yeah.
I know, I feel the same way. It's like, I get the intention. The intentions are good. It just feels wrong the way it's being done. And like I've already griped about it to both of you guys before, but the whole issue with like black knot fungus in our river valley.
Oh yeah.
That fungus which is on so many of the trees, and it's like I know if that was on a tree in my yard, it's getting pruned ASAP.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that spreading, because it's so bad on a lot of the softwood trees. As far as I know, it's like really bad for cherry trees as well. I forget what trees it really focuses on, but I've seen it several times in the river valley, and I'm like, shouldn't this be like a high priority to get rid of?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how many arborists they actually have in the city.
I don't know. I should find an arborist and talk to them about that, because I feel like it would be fascinating to learn why they do and don't do certain things with the forest. Like, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Our river valley is so overdue for a big fire, with the amount of dead trees and the amount of like logs that are just sitting on the forest floor, not being allowed to burn. Like, I get some people are saying, oh, well, we need to like keep the river valley naturalized. But fire is also a part of nature, and
Yeah.
fire in the river valley has been suppressed for so long, which might be why we're seeing some more disease.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like we all know that happens in nature all the time. You have too many of an animal or too many people in one place or something, and suddenly you start getting disease outbreaks. You know, for us, it was dysentery, the plague, cholera, all those things. For trees, it's this black knot fungus. And a story which just came out recently. I think I mentioned it to you. I don't know if I mentioned it to you. But talking about those nice tree-lined boulevards, Dutch elm disease was recently found in Edmonton. Now, brief recap. Dutch elm disease was responsible for wiping out a tremendous amount of the American elm stands in the United States. Edmonton, for a long time, had one of the last healthy remaining stands of American elm trees. Those are the trees that are those beautiful branching trees on all of our older neighborhoods. Those trees are worth a lot of money. And then recently, that fungus, the Dutch elm disease, was found in 4 trees in the Killarney neighborhood at the end of August. People naturally freaked out because
Yeah.
like these trees are like probably 100 years old, a lot of them. So luckily we have good news though. This story came out 2 days ago. The spread of Dutch elm disease was stopped in Edmonton after 25 trees were removed and 55,000 were assessed. So Dutch elm disease is a fungus that kills the elm trees. The city thought the disease would like exist in our trees for years to come, but luckily it sounds like our arborists that we were just making fun of a little bit, but it sounds like they got on top of the Dutch elm disease right away.
Yeah.
So Killarney, it's a neighborhood in northeast Edmonton. It's not clear how the Dutch elm was found in the city. The way we're typically told to prevent the risk of Dutch elm is if we're bringing in any wood from like outside of the city, debark it, make sure it's clean wood. Don't bring in firewood from outside of this, like not even outside of the city, but just like outside of the province, I guess. They also said to prune elm during colder seasons and properly dispose of branches and clippings at somewhere like the Edmonton Waste Management Center. But it sounds like right now our elms are safe. Thank
That's
God.
great.
Yeah.
It's such an important part of the vibe of the city. Like just look at that photo. That's beautiful right there. Like
Oh,
that's
Yeah.
that is one of the reasons why. Again, I know it's easy to make fun of Edmonton. It's so easy to make fun of Edmonton. I live here. I love it. It's so easy. But those streets with those trees, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially in the summer when it's like a nasty hot day, and you just go down one of those streets and you feel the temperature like drop 3-4 degrees
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah.
It's important for the microclimate. It's important for a ton of animals. I'm personally very happy that we have managed to keep the elms for just a little bit longer. Well, you guys have anything else to add? Any new stories?
No.
No stories for me.
Nothing? All right, thanks for listening. We're going to go grab some breakfast. Adios.